have short-term goals, long-term goals. They're modified every year depending on how much you've accomplished or what trials and tribulations have happened throughout the year. This year has been a rough year for a lot of producers as far as production, so it might not have been a great year for some goals. If you're a cattle farmer, it might have been a great year for some goals. It just depends. So what is a business plan? Your business plan consists of 4 sections. The first section is a business description. This is a really basic section. This is really talking about what your business is, what your goals are, what your history is, and who's involved in the business. The second section is really the second section is really the meat of your business plan. This is your marketing section. This really talks through who your customers are, what your products are, how you're getting your products to your customers, how you sell your products, what you're pricing your products at, how you're telling your customers about your products, all of the different things to get your products from your farm to your customers, whoever your customers may be, whether they're consumers, directly to the consumer, or they're wholesale markets or distributors. The next part is management operations. This is who the owners are, what are their qualifications, what are they doing. It is also a description of your farm and what you have on your farm as far as buildings and land and equipment, and then production practices. And then the last part is your financial plan. This is often one of the hardest sections to complete because it really looks at your financials, a profit and loss statement, cash flow, balance sheet, as well as pro forma financials, which is looking forward into the future and making some projections. So we're going to go through all of these fairly quickly. This presentation will be available. Jody does have it, so it will be available through when they make all the presentations available from the conference. If you do have questions, again, please ask them. If you would like more information on all of this, please see us at our table. So your business description, kind of talked through this already. These are the basic sections within this big section. The biggest part of this business description are your goals. Your goals are super important because they dictate the rest of the business plan. Without your goals, we can't determine the marketing. Without your goals, we can't determine the financials. If you don't have any goals for selling product, we can't determine your pro formas. We don't know how much sales you're going to have. You hope to have in the next 3 to 5 years. We don't know what your sales are going to be in the next 2 years. And they need to be SMART goals, so specific, measurable, attainable, relative, and timely. Which means you can't just say, I want to sell 10 cows. Great. When? To who? How? Where? All of those questions have to be answered with those goals. So it's really important to be as specific as possible when creating goals. So some examples of goals. These are based on vegetable farms. So for short-term goals, Kelly's Vegetable Farm will increase CSA sales by 30% by 2027 by adding a drop-off location. It is specific, it is timely, she can state in there. It is measurable, so 30%, she can see 30% increase by where she is now by 2027. And it's relative to what she's doing. The next one, Kelly's Vegetable Farm will add a wholesale buyer and have at least $5,000 of wholesale volume in 2025. A long-term goal. So those are short-term, so those are in the next 2 years. Long-term goals are beyond, and this was made before, but long-term goals are Kelly's Vegetable Farm will increase production capacity by 25% by 2027. And we can push that out and do by 2029. So those are long-term goals. Any questions on goals? The marketing plan. As I mentioned, this is kind of the meat of the business plan. This is the biggest section. It is sometimes the easiest to complete. It is sometimes the hardest to complete. Who here likes to brag on themselves? Likes to toot their own horn? I got one. Unnominated, but one. Okay. So this is kind of what that is. It section that really talks about what you do, why you do it, and who wants to buy your product, and what your product is. So the first part is the market research and analysis. So it's the trends, the market, and really looking at what is happening on a national level, and then what's happening, if you're in Kentucky, what's happening in Kentucky on a local level. So this is part of the business plan, is something that we work with you on. If you're working with a K-card staffer, this is something that we work directly with you on. We will pull all the information. We have sources upon sources upon sources of information. But it's looking at educational document. It is looking at USDA statistical data. It is looking at food and grocery data. It is looking at all kinds of data and pulling it into analytics and pulling it into an analysis and identifying the trends. So over the past 20 years, there has been a trend trending upwards for local food. Over the last 5 years, there has been a small trend for organic. Over the last 2 years, there has been a smaller trend for organic grain. Over the last year, that smaller trend for organic grain has grown in Kentucky. So we look at all of those trends, and those are then identified in the business plan in this section. So it's really kind of backing up why you do what you do and why it's important. The next part is your customers, and this is really important because this is going to talk through this is going to help you determine how you sell your product in the next few sections. So this is identifying your existing customer base if you have some. If you're new and you don't have an existing customer base, it's identifying your customers. So if you're growing herbs and you want to sell to tea companies and you want to sell to tea enthusiasts, where are those people? What are they like? What do they want? Where do you find them? Are they your average person walking down the street? Or are they the ones going to different coffee houses? Are they the ones going to craft fairs? Are they the ones going to more high-end markets? Or are they the ones going somewhere else? Are they looking more online? Where are they? What are they looking for? This also looks at wholesale customers. If you're looking for wholesale customers, where are they? Are you looking to sell to restaurants? Are you looking to sell to distributors? Are you looking to sell to schools? If you're looking to sell to schools, are you going directly to the school? Are you working with the food service director or the certified nutrition program director? Are you working with a distributor who then works with the school? What does that look like? What does that relationship look like? And then also know your customers. What do they value? What do they want? What helps them make that decision to buy your product? The next part, and this is the easiest part of this section, I will say, is your products and services. This is what you do. What you are raising, what you are growing, what you are producing, what you are processing. The key features of the products, the pricing list, the literal list of what you have. And then the benefits. So, for example, if you raise pastured poultry, what is the benefit of pastured poultry versus buying poultry chicken from the grocery store, from just mass-produced chicken? It's healthier, it tastes better, and it's better quality. People know where it comes from. They know the farmer. They have that relationship. That's important because that is a benefit to your product versus something they can get in the grocery store. The next two sections are a little bit more challenging. And I say that because it is often ones that I have the most conversations on. The first section is your key competitors. And these are neighbors, similar farms, friends, anybody that has products similar to yours. And I say that with the utmost respect, but if you and your neighbor are both raising cattle the same way and processing them and selling at farmers market together, while they can be the best person in the whole wide world, If you all are not in partnership on the same farm, they are your competitor. And I know that's not a great feeling, because competitor, you think, oh yeah, we're going to battle it out. It's a battle royale. It's not. It's not really what it is. It just means that you all are sharing space in the marketplace together. That's ultimately what this is. It's who is sharing the same table with you for the marketplace. Who is sitting at your table with the same product that customers have to choose from. If you were to lay out all the products of the exact same or similar at the table, and customers had to go through and pick one, would your neighbor be at the table with you? So it's just kind of describing what they have, what their benefits are. It doesn't go any farther than that. We don't look any farther than that. It's just to make sure that those people are in the room and that we know that they exist. Because sometimes it might be that there are 10 people within a 30-mile radius of you raising the same thing. And it might be, well, if you all raise this one product, but you also raise these 3 other things, maybe you need to focus on these 3 other things that nobody else is doing, because this one thing is saturated, oversaturated in the marketplace already. So that kind of helps us look at some of that. The next part, remember when I asked who likes the tooth around more? That's this next part, the market positioning. So what is your value proposition? What makes you, you, and why should someone buy from you versus them? So my favorite thing to ask is, if I were to come up to you in a farmer's market, or come up to you in an elevator and ask you what you do, or ask you what is that in your bag, give me your elevator speech. Give me the 30-second, 20-second speech right now. Tell me what it is. And that's what we break down. Because that is your passion. That is what you are most passionate about. That is what you want your reputation to be in the marketplace. Any questions so far? The next part is pricing. This is looking at your pricing strategies. So what you already have your pricing at, so some considerations for pricing is the cost of production, your customer's willingness and ability to pay for something. One thing you don't want to do is price your customers out of the market if you already know where your customers are at. Unless you are trying to change markets, you don't want to price them out. So if you are set on selling into the Frankfurt market, you might not want to charge Louisville, Lexington, Cincinnati prices, which you can charge more, but people in Frankfurt might not be willing to pay that. But you can go to Lexington and do that. And it's okay to do that. Just keep that in mind. And then think about your competition. What are they charging? It's not always who can charge less. You need to charge enough to cover your cost and cover your profit, and make enough to make your profit. Yes, ma'am?
I was just going to say, one of the key things that when I'm talking to farmers about that is really understanding what your cost to do business is. And that means you're tracking your expenses.
Yes.
The cost of your seeds, the cost of your labor, include yourself, and your labor, especially if you're working it, and really being able to competitively price your product based upon what it's actually costing you to do business.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that we go over too. And I just gave the same speech about flowers not too long ago. Is what is your cost to do business? What is your cost to produce your product? When we do financials and we work through that, and we're going to go over that here in just a little bit, is your cost of goods sold. So what does it cost you to produce your product before all of your operating expenses? And then what does it cost you at the end of the day? What is your net income? If at the end of the day, after all of your operating expenses, so your operating expenses is what does it cost you to operate your business? So your phone, your marketing, your square fees, all of your other insurance, all of the other expenses, farmers market fees, all of that. What does it cost you to operate your business at the end of the day? We work through some pricing strategies with this. Sometimes wholesale pricing, retail pricing, USVary, we kind of go through all of that within this section as well. I could give a whole speech on pricing, so I'm going to skip through. Distribution. This is how you get your product from your farm to your customer, whoever your customer might be. There are lots of different ways to do that. So it's identifying the marketing channel and distribution requirements, working through what channels you're going to do, whether that's farmers markets, whether that's home deliveries, whether that's third-party options, wholesale options. It could be all kinds of different things. Direct marketing channels, farmers markets, CSAs, online ordering, whatever it might be. Finally, sales and promotion strategy. This is the last part of this section. This is often, this is where you talk about how you're going to tell your customers about your product and about your farm. So this includes traditional marketing, so printed materials, print advertising, newspaper, radio, word of mouth marketing, friends and family, digital marketing, so website, social media, Google AdWords, which is just Google advertising on Google, and then website optimization, and then your event strategy. So hosting events, tabling at events like this, attending events like this. The next part is your management and operation plan. So this goes through these different pieces. The management part goes through who are the owners, the business structure, so how is the business organized? Is it a sole proprietorship? Is it legally organized as an LLC or a corporation? The key personnel, if there are salary and benefits, or will there be salaries and benefits later on? And then training and evaluations. A lot of times farms and family farms don't have formal trainings and evaluations. They go to conferences like this every year. They have 1 or 2 conferences that they go to every year, and that's their training and evaluation. And that's fine. It's not meant to be super formal. It is more meant for you all to understand where you're at and where you want to go and what programs and opportunities are available for you. The next part is the operations plan. So this is the facility and equipment operations of the business. So facility description, production process, that is fairly important. We don't need to know when and what day of the week and what month of the year you go through and meet and apply all of your things, and what day you plant and what day the moon rises that you want to go put your seeds in the ground. We don't need to know all that. We just need to know general production. And if you do organic, if you do more natural, if you do different things, we want to know that because that's important to your business. And sometimes those little production practices that you do that maybe somebody else doesn't do is a marketing plug, or it's an added cost that you didn't think about because it's something that you've always done, or your parents or grandparents always did and you just picked it up, but you never thought about it. So it's good to know those things. And then equipment, and then regulations. It is really important to know those regulations because sometimes they are required, depending on where you're selling and what markets you're selling into. The last part is your financial plan. So I've split this up into 2 different slides. The first part is kind of the overview of the financials, and then the next part we're going to go through the financial documents themselves. So the first part is the startup cost. So if you're starting a new enterprise on your farm in an existing business, or you're starting a new business, what's it going to start you to begin? So if you're building a commercial kitchen, if you're buying a new farm, if you're adding a new enterprise, so if you've never had chickens and you're adding chickens, what's it going to cost you? How are you going to find the money to start that enterprise? That's the next thing, capitalization. How are you going to manage your inventory? What is your insurance? How are you going to do your accounting? Do you keep a shoebox full of receipts and then go through it? Or do you use QuickBooks? Do you use an accounting software? Do you use Excel? Do you use Google Sheets? Are you some spreadsheet wizard that you have found something else that works so well for you? Because if you do, please share with the rest of us, because we're always looking for new opportunities and new ways to do that. And then how you manage your risk. Finally, the financial projections. And I mentioned these in the beginning. These are your income statement. So this is focused on a period of time. It's usually cash versus accrual. We generally look at cash. And then your cash flow statements. So this is your net cash equals your cash inflow minus your cash outflow. Very, very basic. And then your balance sheet. So this is what you own versus what you owe. So your liabilities versus your assets. These are things that we look at for if you've been in operation for a couple years. We look at the last couple years. If you've never been in operation, we kind of create projections and startup costs, and then we project them out. Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate a little bit on cash versus accrual?
Yes. So generally with cash, it is what you have on hand. Accrual accounting is more for like accounts payable and if you're waiting for money to come in. Cash is mostly what farmers will end up doing because they are you're going to get money as soon as you give things out. You're not, it's not like a hospital where you send bills and you need money to come back to you. You're trading goods for money as they go together. Does that help? So with all of those, we work through the income, we work through the cost of goods sold. Both of those, cost of goods sold is part of your income statement, which is focused on a period of time. We generally look at these for a year. We look at them on a yearly basis because it's really important for us to see them by year. We can do them monthly. Sometimes we do monthly cash flow statements, especially for businesses like a meat processor who might vary month by month. So if you're a meat processor, you know that if you do deer processing, deer hunting months are a lot higher than maybe June or July when things slow down a little bit. And so those months might pick up a little bit, but those months have to carry you on those slower months. Or with vegetable farms, June, July, and August have to carry you January, February, March when you don't have vegetables. And then the last part of the business plan is evaluation methods. This is kind of just to help look through where you are and where you're going. And it's really just to kind of evaluate where your numbers are. So it looks at your number of customers, looks at the growth of your customers, looks at your sales, the number of transactions year over year. So we look at, if you've been in operation, we look at the last year, and we look at the growth over this year, and then we'll do the same next year. The sales per transaction, the sales forecast. We try and break them down by product line. Again, this is very dependent on how you keep records. If you just keep general sales, then it's hard to keep those, to break them down by product line. But we work with you one-on-one to figure all of this out. Any questions so far? Any questions? Yes.
Was packaging somewhere in there? Because, you know, if you're a farmer, especially a beginning farmer, and you're growing something, then to take it to the next level and to market it, and really, I think packaging kind of adds to the value. I guess that's like value-added products. But to say, for instance, you have tomatoes, and you make a tomato paste, and then whether you try to do it yourself, put it in a mason jar, or whether you actually want to spend the money to get with a company that does packaging so that you can actually put it in produce.
Yes, that's under marketing. That would be more under product than packaging. Packaging and products are under marketing, the marketing section. And we look through that. Some of that is under an expansion. And while that's part of a business plan, that's also a different kind of conversation. Because it doesn't always include that kind of conversation. If you're looking to expand your business from raising tomatoes and selling tomatoes at the farmer's market and selling tomatoes to your local grocery, your local restaurants, and then getting them into Kroger, it might not be an actual business plan that you're looking marketing strategy and a marketing financials is kind of the best way to describe that, where it's like, this is where we're at, this is what we want to do, what are the costs associated with that, and then what is the expected income based on that, and then is it worth my time to do it? Because it's a lot more work to get into that process, because it's a lot more certifications, it is a lot more relationship building on the farmer's end, it's a lot more relationship building on the other end, and we bring in other partners as well from that. Everything that I went over here today, everything that we just talked about are all services that KCAR can help with. The business planning part is something that we work with one-on-one. The market expansion part, depending on where you're wanting to go and what you want to do, there are cases that we bring in partners. Now, if you want to get into Kroger, KVA is one partner that I would highly recommend in large retail operations. KVA has a retail liaison who is phenomenal. If you're wanting to get into K through 12 schools or universities, CFA, Community Farm Alliance, or the Food Connection are great people to get into to work with on those as well. And we bring in those partners because it's a multiple way approach, because we want you all to be profitable at the end of the day, and we want you all to grow your farms. But we also want to make sure that what's going into those organizations and going into those schools is going to be beneficial to those kids. And so we want to make sure that everyone is getting what they need and everyone's getting what they want. So our focus is on you, their focus is on both the buyer and you all. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So the business plan, it just updates, so like I'm adding a fresh farm stand to my community garden. So whatever was last year's community garden, the business plan, now we're just adding the fresh farm stand.
Yep. Yeah.
Not separate one for everything.
No, you don't need a separate business plan for everything. Now, if you were going to create a separate business for the farm stand versus the community garden, then I would recommend having another business plan. But if you were adding a farm stand onto an existing business, then just update the business plan. So, and business plans are not meant to be cumbersome. They're meant to be done once and then updated on a yearly basis. One thing that's nice about KCAR, and that's great about working with us, and again, tooting my own horn here, but is once you get into our system, we work with you on developing this, but once you're done with the business plan, we don't just kick you out and say, okay, peace be with you. We revisit it, and we reach back out every few months, every 6 months, every 12 months, until you tell us, hey, no, stop, I'm done. I don't want to talk to you anymore. So we do our best to keep reaching out, and we will keep reaching out and updating this, because it is important to update this on a yearly basis, because things change, life happens, things happen over time. Your goals might change, your life might have changed, something might have happened that your business might have taken a twist somewhere, and it might have taken a totally different view from what we originally discussed. So, and that's important to get that updated. So don't feel like if you've worked with us in the past, or if you've never worked with us and you're like, you know what, I'm not there yet, it's okay. Having that conversation now is great. If you've never started a farm and you're like, you know what, I have this farm and I want to start, but I don't know where to start, just having that first conversation is really important too.
What's your name?
My name is Katie Bowen.
Okay. And so how do I get into your system? Do I come to where you already come from?
We come to you, so we are all based, there's 14 of us, and we are all based remotely around the state. You would actually just call that number or email that email, and you would talk to Laura Kurtz in our system, and she would bring you in and she would assign you to one of our staff, depending on, it depends on multiple things. It depends on what your business is, where you're located, and staff capacity at the time, who has the most capacity. And we all work together, so even if you come in and you are assigned to me, it might not just be me, it might be me and one other person, or me and another person. And then you'll work with us over time. And if you come to me and you're like, okay, I need marketing help, and then I help you on marketing, but in 9 months you're like, okay, I'm gonna start a nonprofit and we're gonna do all these things, and I'm like, great, I'm not the person you need to talk to anymore, then I'll move you on to the next person who can help you with that thing, because I'm not always the best person to help you. I can talk a lot, but that's about a lot. So, yes, ma'am.
Sometimes I see a second summary, but I just see have like a period of you have a second summary.
No, there's lots of different business plan templates out there. This is just one that we've refined over the years. We've been around for almost 25 years, and there's lots of templates available out there. So there's not one right way or wrong way to do it. So, yes, sir.
Does K-Card work with any grants or any financing for facilities, a building?
We do. We don't actually give money out. We work with the Kentucky Ag Finance Corporation, KAFC, which is through the Kentucky Office of Agricultural Policy here in the state. We are their mentors for some of their programs. We also work with a lot of lenders around the state through our time. We've built up a lot of relationships with them. Sorry. And then our grant facilitator, Kara, is actually here, and so there are programs out there depending on what the facility is that you want. If you all have any other questions, I will be here all day. Kara Stewart, our grant facilitator, will be here all day as well. I will actually be back in this room this afternoon, not talking, moderating. But thank you all so much.